Tighten Up, the podcast, is brought to you by Hyperice, the leading provider of innovative technology for recovery, mobility, and improved performance. They help the Titans. They can help you too. Learn more online at hyperice.com.
Detroit, it's time to tighten up. Welcome to Tighten Up, the podcast, presented by The Shield NIL. Brought to you by Hyperice and Last Shot Energy. A state of the Titans, the latest in Detroit Mercy athletics, and a chance to hear from Titans all over the world. Here's your host, Dan Hasty.
Tighten Up, the podcast, back for another edition. And we knew it was only a matter of time until we had the head coach of women's basketball, Kate Achter, is in the building, the virtual podcast building, I guess. Kate, good to see you, and congratulations. What an awesome start for your ladies.
Hey, thanks so much. It's great to be on the pod.
So, big start. 7-2 at the time of this conversation. Tell me a little bit about the surprises here in the early going for you guys.
Well, I'm surprised by it in its entirety, to be quite honest with you. We had 11 new faces, and you just don't know what that's ever going to look like. And especially, having to turn around so quickly and compete. And we just intercepted all these kids basically at the beginning of July. And here we are with a brand new system and a brand new team. And, we walk in our first game and we beat a really good Bowling Green team and then turn around and figure it out against Bellarmine, who I think is off to their best start in program history. So, they're surprising, they're fun, but they're competitive. I'm walking off the practice floor here and I'm like sweating because like the way that we're able to go every day in practice, we make it really hard, for each other so that we know when we get to those big games, like a Bellarmine or a Bowling Green. And, certainly we've had other ones, but when we get to those games, like it doesn't feel as maniacal and, desperate. Like we know what we're in for.
You're now in your third season, and I'm curious, how does building a team in this era of college basketball work? Because, gone are the days where you get this nucleus in year one and they're with you for all these years and you develop these players for all these years. I mean, there's just so much fluidity to all of this now. So what does that look like for you? Because you said there's so many new faces on this team right now.
Yeah, I think it's either adapt or die, for lack of a better, description around it. But I think we've been doing this same college basketball model here for a couple years. So when we took over at the beginning, 3 years ago, we were in the same scenario. They just didn't know me. They knew each other. We were just putting in a brand new system, teaching all these new concepts, getting them to play at a really high level. And then we had a whole bunch of turnover again. And then we, the kids that we were able to keep that nucleus, which wasn't many, they bought in. And, same thing this year. And, our number, it decreased in terms of the kids that we were able to keep. But, what we were able to do from year 2 to 3 was really sell the basketball piece of it. And that's something that helps us here because, we are the gritty school and we embrace that. And basketball is what we do really well. And when you're in the transfer market, you're often dealing with players that didn't love their last basketball experience. It's not always like, hey, the coach was mean to me. It's, hey, I want to play more and I want to play at a system that fits me. So we're able to really sell that. And that's a benefit to our university because, as much as the academics speak for itself here, kids want to be good at basketball and we can give that to them.
What's the hardest part about selling the buy-in, and what becomes easier when you win the way you have to start the season?
I don't know. It's all hard. I think the buy-in is a little less difficult when you inherit some really talented graduate students, because this is it. There's no another transfer after this. This is the last stop. And I certainly think it helps when you've got kids that are playing home because they've not had the chance to play in front of their family for 4 years. So that it kind of alleviates a little bit of pressure to get the buy-in. But I don't know. I think once you win too, and this is what we do a really good job of as a staff of, we want them to find success. We want them to find confidence in the things that we do over and over and over again, but we never want them to be complacent. And I think that's one of the things that's the most difficult about playing for me, but it's also one of the best things because like, you're never going to just sit there and your potential have that shelf life and it's going to expire. Like you're either going to get on board and we're going to keep getting better as a team, or this isn't going to be the place for you. So I think that people that pick to play for me here understand that because we're very upfront in the recruiting process. But it's still hard. It's still hard to meet expectations, especially when you've got a really competitive head coach that just wants you to be really great.
You've got 7 players on your roster from the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
And you mentioned playing in front of your family. And I think about the state of college basketball. And earlier this week, we talked with Greg King, who's part of Team Nilo. We tried to have a really thoughtful conversation about the place that NIL has in the current state of college athletics. Obviously, it's such a nuanced conversation, but I feel like now more than ever, facing a team with local talent and having that ability and playing in front of your family and friends, playing with your friends, the players that you've been with for the last couple of years is more important now than ever. Tell me about how that means to you guys.
Well, it really brings to light our local recruiting at the freshman level. So we are one of the rare programs that we still want to recruit freshmen. I think you need to have a healthy mix between inexperience and then a couple kids that have played for you, and then some outside experience that know how to do it in different ways, but maybe they're craving just something a little bit different. So we recruit Detroit in the metro area really, really hard. My staff is excellent at it. It was very strategic in the way that we've hired and how I insulate myself recruiting wise. But the tricky part is that we're not often getting kids to pick us right away. We're getting them on that backside. And certainly to me, that's like a college experience thing. Like we all probably wanted to leave home and stretch our wings and get out and, be out from underneath our family's view. But at some point, those families that are super tight knit, those kids come home, especially when there's no penalty to sit out. So we still recruit the area really, really hard. And for us, we've just really tried to maintain those relationships and keep them healthy, even when kids tell us no. So we're staying in contact with high school coaches, certainly AAU coaches. And then if they're coming back home in the summertime and they want to get an open run in, like our doors are always open. So anytime we're told no, we're never like, oh, well, you should have picked us. Like that's a stupid decision. Like, hey man, we wish you all the luck in the world. You know where to find us if you ever need anything. And that to me is, what's going to continue to make our program successful. Like I think Mayana Hooper was the first and only Michigander we had on our roster when we took over. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And you know what else has kept growing? Our attendance. Because fans in the area recognize like, oh shoot, I'm going to come back and watch Biggie. Like she's electric. Or I know Aaliyah McQueen, like I'm coming down to see that. And that to me is what I've heard from, alumni. That's what made Callahan so electric. That presence, the people in the community that have come back and really just like, hey, I remember when it was really good here. Well, now they're coming back.
Tighten Up the Podcast is brought to you by Hyperice, the leading provider of innovative technology for recovery, mobility, and improved performance. They help the Titans, and they can help you too. Be sure to catch their holiday savings at hyperice.com.
Does it feel the way you thought it would feel? Has it come together the way you thought? Is there anything that looks different? I mean, I know in a perfect world, when you take over a program that was struggling the way that women's basketball was struggling, I mean, you really kind of are starting from scratch. But now that you've got it to this place, does it look like the way you envisioned it?
I mean, yeah, I think we're probably about 2.5 years ahead of schedule for what I thought like our best group could look like potentially ever at Detroit. But if you would have asked me in year 1 if I thought this could be year 3, no. I mean, I just think that an experience carves perspective in this, right? Like I did this once before at Loyola Chicago and the turnaround was so hard. And we had all the bells and whistles. Like we had everything to sell. We had City of Chicago. But the thing that is most surprising to me is how much I've loved connecting with the city of Detroit and coaching kids that are from the state of Michigan, because I just relate so well. And I didn't know I would do that. I've always tried to recruit Michigan, and I hadn't had much success for whatever reason. And I'd always recruited Ohio kids because I'm an Ohioan and I had a lot of connections there. But I love coaching Detroit kids. I love when we have team camp here and coaches are getting after their players, and you know what, like they're just grinding, and I love that. That's the biggest surprise for me of how quickly I figured that out, but also how welcomed it's been too. I mean, I go out on the road recruiting, and it's like I had a coach tell me I was doing the Lord's work because we flipped this whole program around. Like I love being here. I love, connecting with the city. I just, other than the Bills playing the Lions last night, which was a really hard thing for me because, I really root for the Bills most days. Detroit has been great to us.
So tell me a little bit about, the parallels that you might see, because I'm sure that, you have a lot going on and it's tough to pay attention to more than just what's going on in your bubble, but
Yeah.
it probably crosses your mind that you took over a 1-win program and you're trying to build it back. And meanwhile, the program across the street of sorts, the men's team, also is in a very remarkably similar situation right now. New head coach coming off of a 1-win season. What kind of things do you feel like the men's side is going through right now that maybe you might have walked into a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, just changing the competitive expectation. And certainly, I don't know this for sure because, again, I just really try to keep my head down and, grind here. But I think Monty has all new kids. Like, I think there's like maybe 2 kids that I recognize from a year ago. So he's trying to build that chemistry and really set the expectation for this is what it looks like to win. This is what it looks like to prepare to win. This is what it looks like to compete to win. And that's really hard. And we're still trying to do that in a lot of ways on our end because, we've got so many new bodies, but, I sympathize and I know the struggle, right? Like you're trying to do all the things at once. You're trying to get guys that are great in the classroom. You're trying to get guys that are coming from Detroit area. You're trying to hire the right staff to insulate you. You're trying to, be the positive face on campus. You're trying to interact with everybody so that when someone says, hey, how's so-and-so, like there's a positive review. And the difficulty in that is you can't just be adequate in all those areas. You've got to really be great to set the tone that this is how people are going to perceive the program. So I sympathize, and certainly a lot of those things for us are continually a work in progress. But yeah, I mean, he knows my door is always open. Like we're still always going through the same thing, and I think as long as that college basketball landscape is going to stay like this, we're going to be rebuilding almost every year. So the cool thing for us is, we really get to hone in on our coaching ability and, our leadership and our team building ability.
So now when you look at how things come, I mean, I'm looking at, and I've seen the games, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Bowling Green. I mean, to beat these MAC schools, I would imagine gives your team a lot of confidence. And now, you have a conference win. You got that one against Wright State. And you're going to go into this break. Of course, you get a little bit of time for the holidays. But how do you keep your team grounded? Because to start off a season really, really hot the way yours started, you don't want them to get too far out over their skis.
Yeah, we have set, and I hate to keep using the word expectation because I don't know, we don't do a whole lot of like goal because then I think like, I don't know, what happens if you get midway through the year and you can't reach the goal or you've hit it? Like then you got to regroup and you got to keep everybody up. So we more so set expectations. Like, here's what a good day looks like. Here's what a great defensive performance looks like. And so for us, then it's a little bit easier to keep eyes forward. So every game, like most programs, I'm sure, we do an offensive, defensive, and an overall goal. And I know I just said we wouldn't do that, but like there are things that we're able to control. that are staples in our program. So like it's often a rebounding goal or a free throw goal. So it's not like big picture, you've got to do this, 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 and this. It's like, hey, if we want to beat Youngstown State, I know XYZ. So we can control this. Let's try to move forward with it. And at the end of the game, we typically regroup briefly and we're like, hey, we got this game goal, we got this game goal, and we didn't get this one. Did we win? So like when we played Michigan and Michigan State, we didn't get our goals. Right. And, the results kind of speak for themselves, but I mean, they're two of the top 20 programs in the whole country. Against Bowling Green and Bellarmine and, Wright State, 2 out of 3 goals. And if we can do that and we can set that precedent going forward, then I think it becomes really easy to keep your eyes up and be like, okay, we need to keep getting better here. We need to keep progressing forward here. It's not just like a one and done or like, hey, this was our goal and that's it. Like, do we talk about like competing for championships? Yeah. But I know that X, Y, and Z lead you to perform at a high level that then lets you compete for a championship. So it just doesn't feel so overwhelming.
I'm glad you said we need to get better here and here. Where do you feel like your team has taken its biggest steps this season?
Well, our outside shooting, for one, we are able to stretch the floor better than we ever have. And I think our ability to defensive pressure in the full court has taken a massive leap. And honestly, it's really bailed us out of a couple games where I felt like we haven't been executing in the half court super well. So we were able to create some offense through our defense. And that's a different story for us. The other thing that is different and maybe a little bit surprising is how good Biggie and Q are. The best coaches have the best players, and those two can make plays that I've never had players be able to make. So like shot clock's winding down and Biggie takes a step back 3 that she gets fouled on. That's not what I drew up, but she has the ability to go make that play. And Q can go break off a play at any point and spin and go, toss it high off the glass. Like our individual playmaking ability is vastly different than it was a year ago. So that's been fun. It's also been super humbling because I've been very much on the build, system. And then you got these kids that can just make plays out of system. So you're like, all right, well, this is me. I'm just going to sit here and be happy about
it. Even the great composers have to play a little jazz every once in a while.
Yep.
Well, Coach, it's been so much fun watching this come together, not just this year, but the years leading up to this, because it really was starting from the ground up. Yeah. So to see what it looks like right now, it makes a lot of people really excited for what this conference season looks like once we really get into the swing of it. And Kate, just to see the success for you, for your coaching staff, really, really excited. I know I can speak for a lot of people to say congratulations on the great start and continued success, and look forward to having you back on the pod. Thanks so very much for joining us.
Anytime. Happy to talk hoops. You know that.
Kate Achter joining us here on Tighten Up the podcast. Another edition here on Tighten Up. We've got much more to come for you as we continue along throughout the course of this Titans basketball season. We cover throughout the course of the program. Much more to come later in the week and into next week. I will talk to all of you Titans of industry next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tighten Up the podcast. Join our community at The Shield on theshieldnil.org and follow us on X and Instagram at theshieldnil.
If I can tell you one thing above all else as part of this show, it would be this. If you're unfamiliar, if you haven't done it before, join the community at The Shield online. It's online at theshieldnil.org. That's theshieldnil.org.